Welcome to Monday Morning Coffee with Inside the Firm. Each week, our hosts will be interviewing local, regional, and national business leaders to give you an inside peek into how they lead their business to success in the ever-competitive business climate.
Welcome to Monday Morning Coffee with Inside the Firm. Today I have a very special guest hailing all the way from Indiana. Barry LaBov is a two-time Ernst Young Entrepreneur of the Year and a celebrated author, speaker, and brand strategist. With a core emphasis on differentiation, Barry advocates for leaders to unearth and champion their brand's distinctiveness to win market share and the hearts of people who represent it. His book, The Power of Differentiation, Win Hearts, Minds, and Market Share, distributed by Simon and Schuster, embodies this philosophy. As the founder of LaBov, a renowned marketing training firm and serving blue chip clients, Barry is renowned for his infectious energy, creativity, and an uplifting message. Barry, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Lance. It's an honor. I'm looking forward to it.
Before we get into what you do, I ask every guest, how did you get here? Are you from a family of entrepreneurs? Are you the first? Where does that spirit come from?
I grew up with a father who was an engineer and was definitely not an entrepreneur. And my mother was a bookkeeper, but her father was an entrepreneur. And I rejected everything she said for the first 15 to 20 years of my life when it came to this. She kept telling me, oh, your grandfather was such a great business person. Oh, he did this and that. Oh, he was incredible. And I would always say to my mom, look, Mom, I hate business. I don't want to ever run a company. I hate it. I want to be creative. I want to write songs. That's what I wanted to do. But somehow, I don't know if it was brainwashing or mind control. After I really got a little bit older, I started to see the excitement in business and how you could be creative and how you could work with people and do things that have never been done before. So that's how it's all happened, Lance.
I love that so much. Yeah, which kind of leads into rock musician to entrepreneur of the year. How did that, you got to tell us about that.
Well, from the time I was 14 years old, I was in a rock band with my brother. It was a really bad sounding rock band. It was a two-man group. I played drums, sang, and also played keyboards at the same time. So you can only imagine the noise. Plus my brother sang and he played guitar. I started to get the bug, and the bug was writing songs. I wanted to write and create. So at that early age, I started to be more prolific with my thinking. I was writing and writing and writing. And I then graduated to working with grown-ups, 15 to 25-year-old guys. And we actually had some songs on American Bandstand. We had a song on the Billboard charts and all that. But I jokingly say, although it is true, my music sold well under 1 million copies. So we did not make a lot of money on it. But what happened was I understood what it was like to work with other people, to inspire them to perform, to put up with the fact they may not show up once in a while and then go, okay, what do I do here? But also get them to get excited about the music and contribute. That led me into dabbling into, and this was a very important part of my life, I was dabbling into running a jingle company, writing those irritating little music pieces. So I ran a company at the same time I had a band. Then tragedy struck. My father passed away. And all of a sudden, Lance, I had this very, very strong moment in my life where I thought, wait a minute, maybe I'm not guaranteed to live for the next 100 years. What if I died today? What if I die next month? I mean, my father's gone. It could happen to me. And I thought, what do you really want to do? And I decided, I kind of want to run a company. It's a little more fair than a rock band, and it's still allowing me to be creative. And so I did it. Now, as fate would have it, about 6 months later, one of the clients I had been working with offered me to buy their marketing department. So what they said was, Barry, you can buy our marketing equipment and we'll give you 3 years of our business and you can be our agency. I thought, wow, okay. Well, I said no 3 or 4 times until they begged me. And I said, why do you keep asking me this? And they said, because we trust you. So what happened, Lance, very briefly, I jumped in. I said, okay, I'll do it. I did not realize that I was going to lose all of my clients who were agencies hiring me to do those jingles. But it was a great thing. I jumped in. Within a couple years, I became Entrepreneur of the Year for the first time, which was a great honor. And it was based on the work I was doing with that client. And from that point on, it's been a really great ride. We work with some of the most wonderful clients in the world, some small, some large, some relatively new, and some over 200 years old.
And what age did you make this transition at? Sorry if I forgot. I missed that part.
No, I didn't share it.
Okay.
That's a great question. I was around 28, 29 years old when I made that. So that big decision, and I never looked back. Now I did give myself permission. I remember the moment I said that, okay, if you want to do it, but you can always go back, give yourself 6 months. But I never turned back. I found that it was my calling. And here's my secret. My secret was, and at the time I didn't understand it. My secret was I love creativity. It wasn't that I love music. I do love music, but that's not it. I wasn't put on this earth to play a guitar or keyboard. It was to be creative. And I found I could do it in business.
Oh yeah. I love that you're emphasizing this, Barry, this the creative component of being an entrepreneur, because I mean, for me, it's always been there.
Yes.
We started our firm in the Great Recession, and I do a lot of interviews as well. And people ask me all the time, when is if people are listening to this, when is the best time to start a business? And I go, a Great Depression or a Great Recession. And they go, what? And
Oh,
I go,
yeah.
yeah, hopefully with no clients too. And they go, what? And I go,
Oh, yeah.
because it will force you into a corner and you have to be creative. There's no other
You
way.
have to be. Well, Lance, I started mine back in 1980, 81 during a terrible recession. There was no business. Interest rates to buy a home were 18%. Nobody had jobs. I woke up every morning with no momentum, nothing. Worked all day as hard as I could to get a little bit, went to sleep exhausted, woke up, no momentum, and rinsed and repeated. But it sharpens you, and it makes you think creatively, and it makes you work hard. And boy, it also makes you appreciate the little success you get here or there, and you just don't want to lose it.
100%. Which kind of brings us to brand differentiation. So it is a very competitive market in almost anything that people do, unless you're bleeding edge, and especially in my market, which is half contracting, general contracting, being a builder. There's a lot of people that want to be a builder. There's even more people that want to be architects and designers and do the fun stuff. So why do you think brand differentiation is more important today than ever?
I think it's more important for a couple reasons. Number one, we are being forced to commoditized. There's so much competition out there. There is a giant pressure to reduce price, cut the corners of that really unique stuff you do, get rid of it, and look and act like everybody else. So I think that's a big pressure. Another thing that I think is so timely is employees. Employees do not want to work for a cookie cutter, faceless, heartless, soulless company. They want to feel that they're doing something important. They want to feel like what they're doing has significance. And when you identify that you actually have 1, 2, or maybe 3 things you do that are unique, not 100, maybe 3, and that you really lean into them and you say, this is who we are, this is why we do it, and you celebrate it with your employees first and say, everybody come together. This is what we've really identified and discovered. And you know what? You are the biggest part of it. You're the people that deliver it. You're the face to the clients. We need you to understand you have great significance here. You are our company. Now, when you do those things, Lance, think about your quality control is probably going to get really high. I mean, you're going to have high quality, and your retention for employees probably going to be really high. And since that's going on, guess what? Your customers, hey, they probably will feel it. They'll go, this place is great. So that's why you determine what makes you unique. You identify how to describe it, and then you celebrate it internally first before the rest of the world.
You know, it's sort of like the analogy I was just making about being put in a corner, and then you have no choice, right? So I would assume then in the same sort of way, then you're just pushing yourself to create those, especially if you're, sharing it with your employees. Very important. Thank you for sharing that with our service-based listenership that we have. You've also worked with some of the most famous brands in the world. Why do you think they choose you?
I think they choose us because they need energy, they need entrepreneurialism, they need somebody that provides them hope and positive opportunities instead of somebody that comes in and just wants to take an order. We're not good at taking orders. We're just not good. There are other companies that take orders and they can do it just as well or better than we could ever do it. We're good at coming in and identifying things and suggesting things in a very respectful manner, not an arrogant manner, but we're the people who are the people behind the great ones, the great brands, and we let our clients know it. So I think they look at us and they go, these people get it. They understand business. They understand our business. And you know what? They actually care. They've got really good ideas.
Talk about the customer experience play in a brand's image. It's a sort of a symbiotic relationship. And,
Well,
what's the role there?
that's a great question. And, you're in the service business and you're working with people, and I'm in the service business. And here's what's interesting. And I hope your audience really digests this. To your customer, Lance, your customer experience is exactly the same as how they look at your brand. So let's say you're a contractor and you can really build something great, but the experience that the customer goes through is terrible. They'll go, oh, that guy's terrible. Well, now wait a minute. Maybe you're the greatest builder, contractor, architect, whatever. But if the experience for the customer is bad, the brand, your work, everything is bad. We don't separate it. So when we buy a car, it's the same thing. If we want to buy the coolest looking car and there's a great ad and we go into the dealership and the dealer's terrible to us, we walk out of that dealership not buying. We say, we will never buy that brand again. And the poor person sitting in the corporate office somewhere, maybe across the ocean, goes, well, I didn't even know that person went in there. I didn't have anything to do with it. And the point is you do, because your brand experience is your brand in the eyes of customers.
It's so important, especially I feel as if there's a big contrast that's happening right now that maybe a lot of people aren't talking about, where, we're in this DoorDash era, right? We're in this contactless era.
Yep. Yep.
And I think there's something to humans being social beings that they actually are going to we're going to swing back in the way if we want that kind of customer experience. Are you feeling any of that from any of your people you work
Yeah.
with?
Here's something I'd love to share, because this is a statistical story. It's all based on facts. I won't go into the details, but here's the reality. If a customer, and this has been proven, if a customer is satisfied, satisfied, not thrilled, but they're satisfied, there's about an 80% chance they'll come back. Okay. If they're dissatisfied, it's 50-50, because a lot of times the company down the street is bad too. And they go, they're both bad. Now, here's what's amazing. If the customer was dissatisfied, but you have made them satisfied, they're 90+% likely to repeat. And it's because what you were talking about, it all of a sudden is personal. They know that you care. They did not expect you to be perfect, but what you did that was great was you found a way to connect with them and solve it. You didn't go dark. You didn't hide. And that's what happens so much in lousy customer service. When there's a problem, the person on the other side of the conversation vaporizes. They're gone because they don't want to deal with the conflict. The reality is customers uniformly will accept imperfection. They just need to know you care.
100%. Yeah, just run at the problems. That's one of the I've noticed too, is just run at the problems. And you know what even comes down to, like, at the beginning of that first sale. I just read this phenomenal book, The Psychology of Selling, and it reminded me of just, oh no, I am here to just solve your problems. It's so much less about me and what I and sort of our reputation and everything. They already brought us to the meeting, and we got in that sales meeting because of the reputation and what we can do. And now it's on me to just seek to understand maybe 3/4 of the meeting, and then explain, and then just say, I think we can help you. I think here's how we're going to help you in those sort of ways. So it's less about me and sort of, and then there's the bookend of it. That's you sort of capstone there. You firmly believe that the leaders of a company should share and celebrate their brand differentiation with employees, as you talked about earlier. But can you expand a little bit more on that? Like, give us maybe some real world examples of companies you've worked with where they do that. Because I am very much a praise good good service publicly in our meetings that we have every morning to employees of just even little stuff. Like I walked in on Monday morning and Sarah already had an email out to a client that I wanted that to happen. I didn't even have to ask for it. And I just instantly praised her and I go, thank you so much, Sarah. Like this is a great start to the week. Great job doing that. And she said, my pleasure. So maybe you could share a few stories.
Well, one story I'll share, and it's kind of interesting because it started off on a negative note, and that was a very famous auto manufacturer's president called me. And he says, hey, we have this lousy, ugly looking car. Nobody's buying it. And we're replacing it with a new model, same name, but a new model. Our morale is terrible. And we have to make sure that this launch is successful. Can you help me? And I said, sure. So I went to his office, but I had done some research. And I said, hey, before we start, do you know what car and model is the #1 seller in your segment? Over the last 10 years, there's one car that's the #1 seller in your segment. And he said, I don't have the foggiest idea. I said, well, I do. I did a research. It's that ugly, no good car that nobody's buying that you built. And he said, you've got to be kidding me. I said, you have the #1 selling car over the last 10 years. And he said, well, we've been denigrating it. We've mocked it. No wonder morale is bad. So you talked about celebrating. Here's what he did, because he's a phenomenal leader. He said, okay. He got up in front of the entire employee base, which was about 1,000 people. And he said, I want to apologize. We are replacing our current model and we have a brand new one coming out. But the first thing we need to start doing is we need to identify the success that that car has seen. We have to honor it. I have been wrong. So he was vulnerable. I've been wrong. From this moment on, we show respect and honor to that model as we are launching its brand new replacement. And that was a game changer because people were literally crying as he was saying this, because all of a sudden, years and years of embarrassment and frustration were released because they thought, I've been doing something that I thought was important, and now I'm finally being recognized. So that's an example when you're coming from something that's difficult, something that's rough. Another thing that we have done is we hold these internal celebrations, and often we will invite special guests. And these special guests, this is interesting, everybody, will say, oh, we're going to have a celebration. We're going to celebrate our brand. We're going to celebrate you. And we have 2 very special guests. Now, they're secret. We're not going to tell you who they are. So we did this for a mobility van company. And what they do is they retrofit vans for people who are in wheelchairs. So the people in the wheelchairs can roll up the ramp and get in and drive the cars. So our client got up there in front of everybody and he says, okay, everybody, here are our special guests. So they expected a couple people to walk up. Nobody walked up, Lance. 2 people rolled up in their wheelchairs. And they were 2 of their loyal customers. And people are starting to tear up. And they interviewed the 2 customers so that we all learned, how did they get into that wheelchair? What happened? Everybody makes these assumptions. One was a great athlete and he injured himself in a pickup baseball game. The other had polio as a young kid. You had no idea these stories. And they talked about how important it was that this van worked because it was their lifeline. And if it didn't work and they had to crawl out of the van, it looked like the Grand Canyon down there for them just to get to the street. Well, all of a sudden you're going, my gosh, what I'm doing has some value. So we need to realize that a lot of times our employees never meet the end users, or they don't see the end product. Think of how many people are building something and they never see what it looks like when it's all done.
Yeah.
So we have to connect those dots. The one final thing I'll say on this, which is as important as anything else I've said, is, and you did this great in your Monday meeting, every day, every interaction is an opportunity to reinforce what makes us unique. So don't wait for the annual meeting. Don't wait for the big company picnic in July. Do it today.
Yeah, yeah, the little stuff matters for sure. I really like that last example. I mean, I feel like we do a lot of residential, and how interesting would it be, custom stuff, and how interesting would it be if we on our 20th anniversary, which is coming up soon, we had a we had an employee, we had a little party, and we had some special guests, and we had some of those special owners come in. Wow, that would make a giant impact. That would be an insane impact.
Lance, imagine if you did that. Now, this is an opportunity. So imagine you did that and you did not tell your employees what your plan was, and you invited a half dozen or a handful of these special guests, and a couple of them were, let's say, children when they moved into the house you built. They might have been 2 years old and remembered their little room, and now they're grown-ups, or now they're going to college. And you talk to the parents and how the house was the home for all of their children, and they love the cabinetry, all these things. Now, all of a sudden, your people go, okay, what I'm doing actually is important, and it means something to people. Your people are building things, and how often are they really seeing the people inside enjoying it?
Yeah.
Probably not a lot.
Oh, I agree. You're 100% right. It's very, very little that where we have that sort of post-occupancy experience with folks like that. So I just am falling in love with this idea. Barry, what do you think differentiates your brand?
Well, we focus on one word, differentiation, and we have one process that's 5 steps that nobody has, and that is, we call it brand re-engineering. The second step in that process is something that I know of no other company doing, and that is, it's called a technical immersion. And we actually go inside. Usually it is in person, sometimes virtual, but we go inside the company. It could be their headquarters. It could be their factory. It could be their technology center, whatever. We go inside to discover what makes them unique. We send a technical immersion group in there to do it. Nobody does it. It's exciting. Everybody in the company is looking around going, who are these people? And we're coming through, checking out what they're doing, and we are discovering this magic that's within the company. Nobody does it. And as I mentioned to you, one of the final parts of our process is the internal celebration. And you have a lot of leaders and entrepreneurs that listen. I want to say something very positive about today's leaders. 20 years ago, Lance, when I said, and by the way, Mr. or Mrs. CEO, when we're all done getting your brand ready to launch, we want you to celebrate it first with your employees. 20 years ago, 90% of those leaders said, no, we're not going to waste our time on that. We're paying them a few bucks an hour. They need to keep their head down and work. Today, it's a different story. Today, they tear up and they go, oh my God, I love this. We need to do this. This could be so important here. I love this idea. So that's what we do. That's what makes us different.
Beautiful. Tell us about your new book, The Power of Differentiation.
The Power of Differentiation is 214 pages, 50 stories of leaders who tackled challenges, in some cases made history, and in all cases rallied their people behind what made them unique. And it's all kinds of businesses. It could be one of the leading jet companies in the nation. It could be a 200-year-old Scotch brand, Macallan, which is phenomenal brand. It could be Harley Davidson. It goes on and on. It could be a mom and pop shop. It could be a privately held family componentry business in Warren, Pennsylvania. And it could be a mining company in Australia. It's all of these stories, and they're inherently very positive and inspiring.
I was just trying to look it up on Audible. Will it be there anytime soon, Barry?
It will be there within days. I
Oh,
recorded it
seriously?
yes, within days. I recorded it myself on one of my old rock and roll microphones, a vintage microphone, and it's right now being processed. It will be on Audible within days.
I'm gonna pick it up. You had me
Okay.
with the 50 stories.
Yep.
It's I mean you get it. It
Yep.
spoke to an entrepreneur like me. A lot of times we feel alone, right? Like we're sort of siloed, even if we have a business partner.
Yeah.
I mean the buffer's a little bit different, so I appreciate that. I'll be picking it up, Barry, for sure. I'm excited to listen to it.
I agree. And I do think leaders are lonely. It's a lonely life. And being a leader, let's say you're a mile ahead of everybody else and you're seeing things, but you're mostly alone and you're trying to explain these things to people and they may think you're crazy. And it doesn't mean you're smarter or better. You're just in that position. And these stories will speak to you because they're about human beings who are tackling these challenges. And they're happier because of it. And I said, make history. I have a client who I have him in the book and he's going to be on my podcast coming up. And his whole point was, I said, why are you doing this? And he said, I want to make history. And he meant, I want to make history helping my brand help customers. And I thought, my gosh, he didn't say, look, I want to make a little more money. Well, who
Yeah.
cares about that, right? He wants to do something great. And that's what this book is about.
I love it. Two last questions here as we run up on the half hour, Barry. Going back in time, if you could give yourself one piece of advice before you started your business, what would it be?
It would be never compromise, even if you're pressured to say yes to please a customer, or if you're pressured to try to grow the business, don't compromise. Stay with what you believe is right and take your lumps. If it means you don't get to grow as fast, deal with it. If it means the customer's a little irritated with you,
Mm.
put up with it, but don't try to please them at the risk of really hurting your integrity.
Yeah, I love that. Barry, if people want to get in touch with you after listening to this, follow you, learn about your services, where can they do that?
There are a lot of different ways. You can look me up on LinkedIn. Just request it. I'll accept it. You go to my website, barrylabov.com. You can also hear a few of my songs on there, and you can get a few freebies in there. And you don't have to give up your email address. And you can also book 15 minutes with me or so to have a chat. It does not have to be transactional. It can just be, hey, I want to get some feedback from you. And you can check out my company website, which is LaBov, LABOV.com.
Beautiful. Barry, I am seconds away from sending you an invitation myself to link in with you. I can't wait to follow you, find out exactly when that book comes out on Audible, pick it up and dive into it. Appreciate your time today. Thanks for being on the show.
Lance, fantastic. I can feel the passion that you have. I'm sure your employees and your customers feel it too. Thank you.